Welcome to the circle. This group of people so graciously said yes to chatting with me today. And one of the reasons I have you all here is because we're in this period where everyone's talking about diversity and inclusion and intersectionality and all these buzzwords that everyone loves to throw around. And I find that the buzzwords are getting thrown around, but no one's actually like having conversations with people within those sort of intersections. So I wanted to starting having some conversations with folks and seeing kind of like what that looks like. So I've had my first episode was a group of like very like binary trans women who have lived life and life and life and life and have had lots of stories, and many of which lived periods of their lives where they were stealth. And I think that that's a voice that we almost don't hear any of right now. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I do think that in terms of trans conversations, we're hearing a lot of non-binary voices start to come out into the open, into the public, to share education and to share life and to share experiences. And so I thought that it was necessary to bring in some groups of non-binary folks, because I think that there's, quite frankly, a lot of division within our own community as well from those of us who are binary and non-binary. I think there's a lot of separation. And I don't necessarily know that the separation would be there if we truly all understood each other. So I wanted to bring some folks into the circle to have some conversations. I'm starting out these sort of chats. They're not all going to be this either. So once you've been in one circle, you may be asked to come back to another one that has nothing to do with your gender. Imagine that. Like, what does life look like when you're brought in and it's not about gender?
I don't speak unless it is on my identity.
Oh, I'd love to have each of you just go around, introduce yourself, tell me your pronouns, who you are, anything you want to say about yourself quickly, and we will jump in. So let's start. I believe everyone's screen is the same as mine now. So let's just go in this way.
So it's not the same because...
Oh, it's the opposite, isn't it? Is it this way on your screen?
Are you pointing to me?
I'm pointing to, well, maybe is next to me on my screen.
No,
so probably, is it this way?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pointing to you right now.
Oh, wow. Like. So it's like, oh, it's opposite. So yeah, so maybe it's here.
Okay, hi. My name is Maybe, just like perhaps. I use they or she pronouns, they, them, she if you're lazy. Actor, writer, human rights advocate, general weirdo, and I show up anytime Mel Morgan asks me to.
Oh, not this humble lean back and shoulder forward moment though.
Yeah. Yes.
I have to tease. Kat.
Hi, my name is Kat. I use they, them pronouns, and yeah, I agree with the sentiment of just saying yes to anything that Elle Morgan presents, because I notoriously, like, over the last few months have really just, I feel like, gone fully into the void of just, like, not really caring about anything or answering emails. But I was like, oh, Elle Morgan, oh my gosh. Like,
oh, yes, some good news. Aww. Yeah.
Bruce?
Oh, next. So, Bruce
Painting
Jones.
Nails.
Yes, this is called Swamp Slick, if you're curious. I'm a full swamp witch. So my pronouns are they, them, actor, writer, general body positive activist, trans person. Thank you for letting me be here and talk with you all.
Of course. And Kit Yan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kit. I use they, he, and she pronouns, and I write plays and musicals for stage and screen. And I'm just super excited to be here to see everybody. I haven't been in community in a little, as long as everyone else hasn't been together. So I really missed y'all.
Well, thank you for using my platform for your personal community purposes.
Oh no.
Notes to a talk show host: do not insult your guest.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
she's spicy. She's spicy.
Oh my goodness. You're
That's what we
missing.
love about you.
You are, ooh-wee, I'm ready. I better start drinking a little bit more.
So we have reached that point in this process of pandemic life where we are at 1 year. Congratulations, everybody, for making it through. We've lasted 1 year. Looks like we have more time to go, but we've made it 1 year. So is there anything that you have, is there anything that you've learned about yourself through this year? I mean, you can give me one thing that you've learned about yourself this year. Throw it out there.
I like to live alone. I literally 4 hours ago just moved into my first apartment on my own.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
yay.
Like
Wow.
in another state.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
in Philadelphia.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, full move.
Yeah.
Not just, this isn't a borough to borough move. You went,
No, we're going to the 6th borough, yeah.
yeah, understood.
I mean, kind of. I told you that Philly is just as far away as some areas in Brooklyn and Queens. So
Yeah.
That's very true. I might be on the opposite end there. I really miss people. And I like really feel like I didn't know how much energy I got from being around other people until the pandemic. So I'm appreciating the gifts of being with other people.
where are you chatting from, Kit?
I'm in Hawaii. I'm in like a little telephone booth in my co-working space.
You're in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so this is a full on like
We're all
group
over.
chat. We're all over the states. Yeah. We're on islands even.
Yes.
Yeah.
God,
like
I would
2
love to be in
o'clock.
Hawaii right now. Such a different.
You let me know when you're coming.
I'm like this weather. It's been a little better today. I can't
Yeah,
complain.
today
Can't
was
complain.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce, tell us about yourself. What have you learned? Something.
Well, I feel like is saying I learned to survive. Does that work? I think yeah, it's been a really I can't even pretend that it's all been like rosy. I'm like literally so grateful to be alive. Like I can't even, I don't know how to say it beyond that. Because I feel like, and I also realized, so I learned that I could survive really, really painful stuff while a lot of other stuff's going on. But I also learned that like I still wanted to be, I know that I still have the things that I want. There are things keeping me, keeping both foot in the world of the living, if that makes sense. Keeping both feet in the world of the living. So.
And where are you right now?
So I actually just moved at the beginning of February to Hamilton Heights.
Oh.
So I am now in Hamilton Heights.
Bye.
And by the grace of Goddess, I have 2 closets. I mean, nothing but up there. Because I'm telling you, I think I gave my notice on the 1st. I had no idea where I was going. But I was kind of in like a semi-abusive living situation before. So, and then basically the perfect thing popped up, and now I'm basically living in like what feels like a sorority. It's like lovely. Like
wow.
Basically, I mean,
Let's dig in a little bit though. Tell us a little bit about this abusive living situation. What are their names? What are their names? Who are here's the picture. Here's the picture.
Right. Well, let's say this. Basically, I think it can be really difficult. And I think this is something that, you know what, this is about the conversation, because obviously we're all in the trans umbrella. So I think I was lucky. I had people that had been around that I really cared about, but ultimately there was a person that was really obsessed with like control and I think, and was always kind of using abusive and harmful language and tactics. And I think that I didn't realize that was what was kind of going on, because I was trying to stay so singularly focused on trying to kind of keep my artistic trajectory going forward.
Sure.
And so I think that I just kind of did this. And then I realized, like, after pretty much ending like a really serious relationship in May, and then being like, feeling like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, we can totally talk about it, no problem. But basically, and that happened in May, and I was basically staying with him at that time, just like for the kind of first 2 months, because I personally felt super paralyzed by fear. When it comes to the pandemic, I felt like I could not go, everything, I was frightened to death. And so then I was suddenly back where I was living, and I realized that everyone was there. And then suddenly the person who was like this figure who I was always able to avoid was suddenly always there. And then it just escalated. And then I was like, you know what? This is low vibration. I'm out of here. So I guess the lesson is like, you know, you can always remove yourself. You know, for your own safety. And I was lucky I was able to do that. But I did it on a leap of faith, not really like, I can't say I was able to, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. So
I definitely believe that the universe always has your back. So if you are brave enough to remove yourself, you will be taken care of.
Yeah, so that's kind of where, so
that's
I don't
a
know.
lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I mean, and that's like, you know, obviously everyone was feeling the same way. Like, I shouldn't complain. I had, you know, there's plenty of things I was able to, I had a place to sleep. And at the time I had a partner, and that is probably more than so many can say. But I think for me, I did have a kind of timeline breakup, if that makes sense. Like, if I were to look at like the timeline of my life and where I kind of projected seeing myself going, there was no part of me that was anticipating that. So I was literally, I have to completely rethink about the way that I go forward now in order to survive this.
Yeah.
That's actually so many lessons, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry, too many lessons.
It's like, I think it's amazing. No, I think it's great. No,
lesson tree.
It's like get rid of the timeline, remove yourself. I mean, like, there's so many things inside of that are like major life lessons. And like, I want to throw out to you, I mean, this is so unsolicited, but like, it's okay for everything to not be roses. And like, it's also okay for you to complain. Like, it's okay to feel that. I mean, I think anything in excess is a bit much. Some people, I think, take the complaining situation a little too far, and like, that's the only energy they put out. But but I think that there's sometimes like self-care is the best care. So in self-care, we have to also like express ourselves. And if you are having a moment where you're maybe not feeling that joy, or not feeling that gratitude, or not feeling that rosy, sunshiny day, like, it's okay to acknowledge it. It's okay to put it out there. Somebody else is also not feeling it with you. So
thank you, sister.
Kat, tell us something that you got from this. Tell us something that you've learned about you from this year.
There were like so many. I was like, which one should I pick? And I think, like, I don't know. I think rethinking what I consider to be like being a motivated person, because like, I think like, and I even did it earlier on this call where I was like, I'm in the void and I'm not answering emails. And it's like, I think in the pre-pandemic world, like, I definitely considered myself like a very highly functioning person who was like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing. And then I have this audition, then I'm going to go to work. And it's like, you know, like we all had the grind and the hustle and just like the culture of working in theater and working another job. And so without all of that, I think I like tend to be like, oh, I'm not doing anything. And this is so, I'm so lazy and not productive. But now I've sort of flipped it where it's like, I feel like I'm really scared of life coming back, because I'm really happy just like existing and having time to like cook good food and just like sit around. I love sitting around. And so I don't know, I think like, I guess just reconsidering what those energies are, and like not negatively thinking about the opposite of being like the hyper grind, hustle, motivated, whatever that used to be our daily life.
Mm-hmm. I love sitting around too. My waistline does not love it, but it is what it is.
I also want to say, Kat, literally, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about me moving, and she was saying, like, what are you going to do, like, when, like, society's, like, back up to normal and things? And I was like, oh, I'm not rejoining.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm not getting back into society again. Like, it's over for me. My capacity is gone.
It's scary.
I have no momentum anymore. I will do what I can do when I can do it. And other than that, I'm not socializing. I'm so sorry. I don't have the capacity.
What does the other side of this look like if you had it your way? In terms of the entertainment industry, in terms of acting, in terms of shows, in terms of writing, what does that look like to have a truly inclusive world?
That's a very big one.
Yeah.
I can say first, though, that my intuition and my first instinct was to say, I don't know exactly, but I do know that, like, it has to kind of start with the opportunities to succeed, right? Like, not necessarily, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily feel like I can say what the result looks like, but I can tell you what isn't working. I can tell you the business isn't perfect now.
Well, I love that you stumbled into that, because I think that we've gotten into a space where people are regularly calling out what is not working, but then not giving sort of action items that can help us towards finding out the things that will work.
Well, the first thing I said, though, is the opportunities, which is that right now there aren't equal opportunities. That's not just a call out. There's a lot of ways that people can apply that feedback. I don't think there's anything vague about that.
So something
go on.
Something you said, Kat, really resonated with me about examining what's happening inward during the pandemic. And I think this also relates to your question, El Morgan, that I think it's really important to remember that, like, we're all people first, in terms of, like, we're actual bodies. Because until the pandemic happened, I was, like, going 1,000,000 miles per minute. And, like, when I had all this time, like, I was like, oh, my left arm, it has a pinched nerve. And I hadn't taken care of that until the pandemic. I had a bad back. I hadn't taken care of that. Like, all of these things. And I think if, when things start to start being open again, we have to remember to take care of each other. Because what a difference would it make if I was going into a rehearsal or a production and somebody asked me, like, how are you feeling? How's your body? Like, how can we get in tune with what's happening with you? And then that opens a door for me to say, like, okay, here's what's happening with me. What about you? And let's figure out ways to take care of each other.
Well, Kit, you're a writer over here winning awards and grants and all this attention. You need to be getting massages regularly.
My left arm doesn't work. How am I supposed to write my show?
That's what I'm saying. You need to be getting pampered and taken care of more often.
It's hard to remember to do that stuff, because you're just going to the next thing.
This city, it's like New York City. It keeps you sort of always pulsing. It's that thing that you said, Kat, it's like, I like not doing anything. It's interesting to understand how some people do feel being able to, like, go to sleep and wake up and not have this sort of day full of plans to knock them over, to, like, actually take a moment to breathe for a change. It's like, we have been living, if you've been in this business at all, you've been living with constant static around you. And it's almost like this year has given us a chance to see what it sounds like to have that sort of dulled down. It's like, and the person that's left in the middle of all that is apparently broken and has a bad back and bad arms. And and those things, you probably wouldn't have even noticed them during all of the craziness because you were running so much.
Your adrenaline kicks in.
Mm-hmm. So, non-binary. What does it mean? What does non-binary mean? We also have an educator in the mix, so I'm gonna let the educator go last on this. What does because maybe teaches classes about this stuff.
Oh my God, you stepped her back. You stepped her back.
So my thought is, I mean, there are big conversations that come out, are they conversations or are they just insults? I think there are people who just have lots of opinions about non-binary people. What does that even mean? What does it mean to be non-binary in America today? Oh, I'm asking these really large umbrella questions.
Yeah,
I just want you to kind of like fill them in with whatever comes to your mind.
Well, I had something. This doesn't answer your question directly, but I
think so then don't answer.
Oh my Lord!
I can give you the here's what non-binary means, but I'm like,
right. Not the Wikipedia.
Do you feel that there is tension within our community? Not sort of completely taking out cis people altogether, but do you feel like there's tension from more binary trans people in relation to non-binary people in the community? I can't hear you. Maybe
I said it's circumstantial.
Yep.
So another thing that I learned about myself a lot in 2020, I really came into my womanhood in a way that I was not expecting. Still as a non-binary person and holding that multiplicity. And I know for all of my life, you included, there have been trans women who completely see me and I feel sisterhood and all of those things. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely certain trans women that fully see me as another complete other, just another, Mm-hmm. Where I played a role at the beginning of 2020 that was originally written to be a trans woman, and then they changed the script before they hired me and changed it to be a non-binary person. And when I had auditioned, I read the script for the trans woman because the non-binary script hadn't been finished yet. And when I booked the role and they gave me the new script, I was disappointed that this character was no longer a woman and it didn't feel like me anymore, even though I am non-binary. And at the time I was exclusively using they, them pronouns.
Yeah.
But it stopped feeling like me in a way that I had to. That's why 2020 was so eye-opening for me on the gender side of things, I think, because I was why did I feel more like that woman than the non-binary person I got to play? Even though nothing really changed except the pronouns they used, but the energy changed. And also in that the perception changed where I now use words like trans woman for myself, still as a non-binary person, but as a way to signal to other trans girls that I am like you. I'm also different from you, but I'm also like you, in the way that all women are different from each other.
And so I love that you said that, because I could see if I were watching this conversation now, I'd be like, oh. To I see where and we've had this conversation before, to the spaces where I see the tension, where I see because I do think that there is, because a question that comes up, and I think this is a question that happens regularly. So there are characters, if the character is written as a trans woman and a non-binary person plays the track, it's one of those things where I and even my own self, I have seen a character that, I've seen an actor that I know is non-binary talk about, I'm so excited, I'm going to be doing this TV show, I'm going to be doing this project or whatever. And then you watch the project and you realize the story of this character is actually a very binary one. And then And then the non-binary person is sort of celebrated for getting to play this. And at the same time, I, as a more binary trans woman, am watching it going, I get the why this person feels comfortable playing this, but there is a difference of experience in someone who is a binary trans woman and someone who is not. And I think that there's also a different experience for someone who is a trans woman as opposed to someone who is a cis woman. So, and I think that I will admit that a lot of the sort of feelings of protectiveness of our space is probably, it's built in the fact that women are a marginalized group and have to deal so often with being having things taken away. So cis women feel a certain way about trans women very often in spaces, and trans women who are binary feel a certain way about non-binary femmes on wherever they are in the spectrum. Yeah. Because there is this idea that I am already feeling a certain way that I am not always welcomed into the space. So if I'm in this room, I know that I'm already having issues with people in this space. And then if you as a non-binary person walks in as well, it becomes, oh, well, this is really not going to make it easier for me at all, because they already don't understand me. And now they're not going to understand you even more, because you're then someone who's saying that your experience of being a woman is not as simple as just I'm a woman. So I feel like it's one of those difficult sort of, it's like the conversation that could go on for years and years and ages really to sort of work its way out.
Because gender is nuanced.
Because it's nuanced, yeah. So it's just one of those things where it's you don't want to. I almost had a deja vu. That's interesting, and I won't let it go. I won't let it go to where the deja vu went. So I felt the steps leading towards the deja vu, but I was like, no, because that was not a good deja vu. But I think what'd you say?
Do I know what you're talking about?
No. This was like a random pandemic dream. But I do think that that's where the nuance lies, and why conversations like these are important, because I do think that we have to be able to listen to each other to be able to truly understand each other's experiences. So non-binary people, I don't get the impression non-binary people are saying that they're coming for our space.
I mean, I can only speak for myself.
I would say in the same way that I feel like binary trans women, I can only speak for myself, are not telling cis women, we're coming for your room, move out the way.
That's never even entered my mind.
No, yeah, but I think that there is a thing, because there's also people who are not non-binary who are stepping into non-binary spaces.
Okay, let's just
who are cis people stepping into non-binary spaces.
The multiplicity is so important there, because also just thinking about and this is educator hat going on. I'm sorry.
Go on, yeah, it's useful in this talk.
It's a category. It's not a gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's of genders, and there's so much within it where there are people who look and live almost exactly like you do, Elle Morgan, who do identify as non-binary, and there's so much.
Meet India Moore.
It's nuance.
India Moore is a perfect example of a person who's read as probably a cis woman.
Mm-hmm.
If not a trans woman, when people know that they're trans, but they're non-binary as fuck. And it's the conversations that I have with other trans women sometimes, where they're well, you're non-binary, so you should stop taking up this space. And I'm can India Moore take up that space? Because
there's people who would say no. Thing is, there are people that would say, if you say that that's who you are, then no, because you'll confuse people, or no. And I think that it's one of those things where it's is it this sort of inherent reaching for sort of cis acceptance that makes us do that as people? Is it this sort of us always trying to reach towards some level of normality to cis people? Or is it us actually being able to embrace ourselves? Because I
respectability politics, that is a major part of it. respectability politics is a major part of like where the conversation goes stale and where we plateau, because there are so many people that aren't even aware of their own biases once they've gotten past whatever point they're in. Kat, I'm so sorry. You were about to answer Morgan's question and I wanted to answer, but you were about to answer what does being non-binary mean? And I didn't want to, I wanted to chime in.
Yeah, jump in here anywhere, please.
So I think for me, like I can only speak for myself, and I know gender is personal, but
Sure.
my experience and the label I feel so grateful and comfortable to use because it's a part of who I am, which is I fully identify as non-binary and as femme, and I very much identify as trans. As far as I'm concerned, non-binary and trans are the same. Non-binary and trans are under the same umbrella. The casting conversation, I'm going to try not to go down that road because I'm going to get, I'm not going, but what I will say is that like, I know that I have only seen trans women in Community. And when projects have come across my desk where it says trans women, my first question is like, who have you talked to already? Or who have you reached out to? You know what I'm saying? And I think the thing that I want to talk about is responsibility here, and especially people who are like, I'm sorry, like I know it, like I don't want this to sound weird to anyone or even using the term cis passing, but I think we do have to talk about the privilege and the difference of like when you are perceived as the gender people want you to be perceived as, versus, you know, I'm sorry, but I know my experience as a femme AMAB person is very different from a lot of folks. And so just like trans, and especially like my trans sisters, I know that they are walking out the door worried about their safety. Mm-hmm. So whenever I feel like,
even if you have reached some degree of passing privilege, whatever that actually means,
whenever you are in a position of navigating,
it's always there.
We have to acknowledge that there are so like, I think that's the thing that I think when people take up these spaces and take up, you know, because I do think, you know, linking back to Maybe, linking back to you, sister, like about the fact that it is nuanced, there's labels to it. It's like rungs, you know, and I think what's really difficult is that I think it's just everyone is navigating, I think, the same kind of like sometimes the same kind of binary thinking. And I feel like we're all trying to like figure out exactly like where to go. But the people that have a strong sense of their identity and they know that there's an opportunity for someone who's more marginalized, I don't really think there's any excuse for them to be taking those parts. Not when you don't feel in your heart, this is the right thing to do. I feel like every single time something comes across my desk, if it's for a trans woman, I always say something about that. I think that a lot of people, also people who are in casting, people who are writing these projects, they're also writing parts just to, you know, they're writing that one track without even, they use this weird, vague language.
Well, it's the trans track. So it's just, and then in the room is every kind of trans identity possible. And they're like, yeah, but the track is trans. See, we have it there.
The amount of times that I'm in an audition or a callback and Esco Jolie is there, and I'm like, what the fuck are they looking at? And it's like, what? Yeah, we're both in this umbrella, but like we are different rungs of the umbrella.
Well, that's just the thing is that it's that people are not being specific about what it is that they're writing. And like, and on some ends,
because that takes knowledge and education and research, which often people aren't willing to do.
And there's also this place where if the character is written as trans, that a lot of these writers are not interested in casting people who don't have it somehow written on their forehead. So if someone's presentation could be considered in some room as cis assumed or cis passing, then that person's not trans. It's like you're not trans, but the reality is in those spaces, when you are a person who might be perceived that way and you're in room with cis people, then in many of those spaces, you're not cis enough. So it's like, so this is where there are some layers of people being like, I feel left out, even in the spaces that I should be able to be in.
Because we are, and they are. They are being left out. people are literally being excluded from the conversation and being able to participate in the arts,
Yes.
literally.
And there are people
It's
who, and
not perceived, it's happening.
there's also this layer of needing to, I've gotten a couple messages from people sort of over the past few years or so, in particular, from trans people who have messaged me like through my email or through DM or something, who have said like, I'm in the process of transitioning and I'm training my voice to be a soprano or to be an alto or to be, you know, whatever this track is. Is there repertoire or types of music that you could recommend for me? Or are there things that you think that I would be maybe comfortable to look at? Because I know that you're a trans woman and I've heard your clips and seen you sing and I see what you sing. And I've been curious, you know, since I'm training my voice, like, are there things that you would recommend for me? And like,
what do you say?
And like, the thing is, my first response to that is always, you have to be true to you. So like, I'm not someone who transitioned and reworked my voice to do something in the process. Like, I've always just done what I do. So for me, it was like, I was just looked at like a crazy person for years. And then suddenly I make sense now to people. So it's like, and I feel like to some extent, Bruce, you're probably having a similar experience to some of that. It's like when your voice is a little bit different to people from the one side. It's like I wasn't transitioning vocally. So like for me, it's like my first response is, I don't want you to sing poorly because you are thinking this is your transitioned sound. Because that's also not helping. That's not helping, because I've had voice teachers send me that message to be like, I'm training this student and we're shaping her voice. And it's like, but that's not where her voice lives naturally.
No, you have to shape the voice you have. You can't create another voice.
It's like, you have certain chords. Like, you're not going to, I would love to shape my voice to be Kristen Chenoweth up on the top. So like, but I don't have that. So like, I'd love to be able to sing Glitter and Be Gay, and I don't have that. So like, it's like, there are things even in my transition that I'm like, I wish we could just shape our voice to become what it is that we think we should be. But like, and I say that full transparency to anyone listening. I am not making, I'm not saying that vocal work or vocal things to make you feel more affirmed in your gender are not essential to you. I think that you need to do what feels most comfortable for you. But I do also come from a space where I want to see a world where we can just embrace our voices as what they are, ideally.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that world. I don't know that we're quite there yet fully, but that's part of the world that I would like to see, where we can just embrace our voices as they are. There is no one way that a trans voice sounds. And it goes back to the comment about aligning ourselves with sort of this like cis idea of what things are supposed to be. It's that we think if you're a trans woman, then you need to be a perfect alto or soprano, because those are alto and soprano are the woman's voice parts. But there are men, there are full-on men who sing alto and soprano professionally, who make money doing this. And there are women who are singing tenor and who are singing baritone very comfortably. So it's like, it's one of those things where I get that if it's for a particular sound that a composer is looking for, or a score that a composer is writing, but like, we have to, I'm not with the people that are like, I'm not one of the people that's like, let's use high voice and low voice. Like, I think that the voice, I like the parts as they are, but I think that we have to take the gender maybe off of them so much.
Yeah. The key is that it's voice part. It's okay.
Yeah.
Tenor doesn't have to mean a man's voice.
No.
And soprano doesn't have to mean a woman's voice. Like,
right.
It's just perceived femininity, the idea of perceived femininity again. Like that.
Well, because also even that
patriarchal thinking. It's silly.
And even that conversation sort of completely eliminates non-binary presence. So it becomes like, you're clearly saying this is the man's voice and this is the woman's voice. And it's like, well, if you're someone who is non-binary that actually doesn't use those words to describe yourself, then how are you fitting it?
Right. I want to actually.
So many things thrown out there. Sorry.
Yeah, if I can, I want to go back to your question about inclusivity.
Sure.
Because I think that's my feelings on that, I think are part of this conversation where I like rolled my eyes and scoffed when you said like inclusion and diversity and all that shit, because like they are buzzwords, and like what are buzzwords if you don't know the definitions of them? But I hate when people try to be inclusive, because when I forget who I got this phrasing from, and I hate myself for like not being able to quote them and credit them.
Don't hate yourself.
For that. Like when you say we are trying to be inclusive, but like who is your we when you say that? Like, why are you operating from a place that's not already us? It's you, and you need to include me. So like trying to be inclusive just for the sake of inclusivity is not going to work out. And we see it done effectively. Like I've played cis girls in musicals in a tenor range because that's my voice and I was right for the role. And they wrote the songs around my voice, or like found keys around my voice. Where I've also been called in for musicals on like the more commercial level, where I sing a song in my key. And then after I'm done singing, they ask me, how high is your belt? Or what's your highest belt? And I'm like, I don't know, like my waist? Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, my God.
My waist.
Like,
they can ask that. They can ask that question.
Screaming their
They
head
can
off.
ask it, sure.
If it's a screlty kind of show where everybody needs to have the certain type of voice, you're not going to be able to be inclusive of me.
Right.
And pulling me in is wasting my time, because I know I'm not in that show. You're not going to change the keys for me in that show, because the show is built on the shock value of these cis women screlting their faces off.
Sure. But that's also part of it. So I love that you put it that way, because to me, that is part of what an ideal world starts to look like, is one where we're transparent about what it is that we're looking for. So if you say, I don't, like, for instance, I don't want you to say that we're seeking all ethnicities or all genders or all types if you're actually seeking a white cis man for this role.
Right.
Like if that's what you're looking for, actually like put it out there that you're looking for that, because then I want you to then be able to be accountable for the fact that that's what you wanted to see. And that's and if that's what you want, no statements around it. You can do what you want to because it's your project, but also then you don't get the pat on the back for we've seen everyone, we've had all this work. It's like you don't get that pat on the back.
Is for the work. The pat on the back is when you've actually you've cast the widest possible net. Like you get to pat yourself on the back when you've cast the widest possible net. And
I thought you said the whitest possible net. I was like,
the whitest possible man.
Whitest possible man.
Widest.
Oh, Zoom.
oh, Zoom.
Oh, I would actually be interested in like a BuzzFeed style, like 50 people list of just like the Broadway men ranking up until the whitest possible man. I'm just thinking of so many people.
Like who that is?
Yeah.
The whitest.
I'm not going to name anything.
Oh, I was like, that could be really like scandalous. It could be like, who is the whitest possible? Anyone listening? That'd be something for you to include in the comments.
Oh
who is
say that.
the whitest possible man and woman on Broadway?
You're gonna get a slew of new followers. They're gonna be like,
they're like, oh wow, Elle Morgan really is so spicy. She throws things. It's so nice.
He's really thinking about
Welcome to my truth.
No one is talking about. Let's get on, like, the whitest possible man. Let's get him on here.
I mean, let's see him.
That's inclusive.
Prove it.
Be truly inclusive.
Let's see him.
I mean, he probably doesn't get cast either, though, because he is that white. There are standards. There are things that are acceptable. That might not be so acceptable if his skin reflects light that way. We don't get extremities. So do you know about this conversation, Kit? Because you come from a totally different side of all this. As Bruce recovers.
Yeah, well, I think many of y'all here have seen some of our scripts, so we put it right on the top. When we say like we're going to change the key for whoever is in this role, and we put that in the script because it's a promise. It's like we say it to be held accountable to that standard, and I think I echo what everyone here is saying. Is that the best person should be in the role, and then the role should fit that person too, because it's kind of a relationship, right? The material and the actor, it's dialogue, it's story building, it's world building. It doesn't work without each other. So you really need to be on the same page in terms of like, let's tell the best possible story.
Question for you: how do you feel? So there are conversations around. I've been using that word so much lately. Conversations. I need to find something. So there are talks about these ideas of keys being changed and like all these changes being really more suitable to new work because this work is in the workshopping process and it's something that is being built. So if you incorporate that sort of into the world of the play as it's being built from the ground up, it's more accessible to introduce this idea that things are a certain way, as opposed to lasting sort of material that we have an idea of what that is, and we have expectations around what the sounds of these things are. So, if you're going to do if you're doing Candide, I want to know that Cunegonde is singing E flats. If your Cunegonde is like, well, actually, I'm a dramatic soprano and I can only, my top of there is B flat, then it's like not quite as exciting for the audience who is listening for that E flat. But it's like so much more accessible for so many more singers to do when you've taken it down a bit. But that's my question. It's like, is that a factor do you think that's a factor in these conversations around changing keys, that there is an expectation of the quality of the tone in a certain place?
Well, it's the
message was for Kit, and then everyone else definitely can chime in. I want to ask Kit specifically because they're a creator that way.
Right. My first thought is we need a new canon that sets the stage for this kind of work. But I don't know.
Start over.
Where's our August Osage County?
The new canon.
Absolutely.
Where's our insert show? Yeah.
I'm not super familiar with like what people consider classic work. I didn't study theater. I'm not familiar with most shows that most other people are familiar with.
Wait, what was your background, Kit?
I grew up in Hawaii, and I went to a very underfunded public school with.
They don't have radios in those places. People are like, oh God, she's really coming after the guests today.
We have radios. We listen to Hawaiian music.
Like, we're not listening to the Wild Party in Hawaii in our growing up. Lakusa was not our first listen. No, I love that though. So your background actually was not like specific. Like you weren't like a theater dork growing up, kind of a thing.
No, I didn't go see a show until I saw Melissa's musical in college. So,
that's actually really sweet though, because that's Melissa is Melissa your only writing partner, kind of a thing, or
my main one? Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So
I didn't realize that. That's
the first
really
one I'd seen, and
that's really sweet.
I'm really only familiar with the new things being created, which is why my philosophy is short. Let's do that.
Right? Yeah, it's why you feel that way about the new canon, because you're not being affected by having to change anything, because you're like, I don't even know that, so let's move
exactly
forward.
Right.
Interesting.